I want to work with like celebrities who have graduated from HBCUs and create a box tailored to like their personality for their campus. Imagine a Meg Thee Stallion box.
Period.
Right? That'd be so cool. A hottie box and really jazz that hoe up. Like,
you should get, you know.
It's your boy Darius Fogey.
Hey, I'm Zila.
And this is the Calf Kids Podcast. We're here. We have a special treat for y'all guys.
Today we have our special guest, our first guest of the podcast. It's our good friend, Alexis Wray. And today we have her here to speak on her work. I think a lot of young people are like really interested in getting involved and helping out because, you know, lately we've had a lot of tragic things happen. And it seems like the people really aren't really sure where to look sometimes for people to get involved, right? Like, it's like, who is accountable for police? Who's accountable for shootings? Things like that. So a lot of the times I think the community starts to take action where they see inaction, right? And a lot of that can come from nonprofit work, you know, community organizing, grassroots movements and things like that. And our good friend Alexis is in that realm. And she's had a bit of experience herself with her own nonprofit. So we want to share her work here and her story and just how someone could get involved with the nonprofit work environment. Alexis, how are you?
I'm great. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you both for having me, my fellow Crosby kids.
Period.
Crosby, period. Yes. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. Alexis, can you tell us a little bit about your background? You know, just for people to have a good understanding of like where you come from and, you know, what your motivation is. Just can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. We all went to A&T together. I graduated from North Carolina A&T in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. And currently my work is multifaceted. So on one hand, I'm a journalist where I'm constantly telling impactful stories about the communities that I relate to. And on the other hand, I do communications for nonprofit organizations. And I am even a co-founder of my own nonprofit that my best friend and I started, Makayla Williams. Yes. It's called MarketBoxx, and we work to fight food insecurity in college communities. So
can you tell me like how you even found yourself in the kind of environments that you are in? Like, what was the driving force that like brought you to your work?
Yeah, that's a good question. Growing up, I was always involved in some type of like volunteer work, whether that was through my church, with my mom, through school. I was always volunteering somewhere, whether I was going to shelters, going on mission trips. And so that kind of continued to transpire through my life. When I went to college as well, I was always seeking different volunteer opportunities and wanting to get involved with my community. I'm very much so take a big bite out of life and not a little bite sometimes to my own default.
Yeah.
And so to me, I was like, that's just not enough. I feel like I also need to be telling these people's stories. So I feel like I also kind of stepped into the realm of, I want these people's voice to be heard, not just for me to be here and be a part of their community and serving and assisting where I can, but I also want them to be able to tell their narrative.
Speaking on specifically like your experience with nonprofit work, like, can you describe to me, or can you describe to us in general terms, like what is a nonprofit and like what are the functions of a nonprofit? Things like that.
Yeah, sure. We'll start with the basics. So like a 501c3 nonprofit is an entity that's registered with the federal government and with a state that's working to provide some type of service or meet some type of a need in a community. And there are so many nonprofits. You can start a nonprofit, in my instance, to help feed people. You can start a nonprofit to provide mentorship. You can start a nonprofit to really do anything that you feel like is going to impact your community. And to get a little deeper into the ins and outs, literally anyone can start one. And probably North Carolina is one of the easiest states in this country to start a nonprofit because the regulations around it are so minuscule.
And is that like specifically the 501
C3?
C3, yeah.
Yes. And basically all you need is a person that's willing to sign their name on a nonprofit. And so when it comes to MarketBoxx, me and my best friend's nonprofit, her name is signed on the documents federally and statewide for our organization. But like if you want to start applying for grants, then you might want to like establish a board, and all these other layers come into nonprofits, like the deeper that you want to get, like if you want to have volunteers, if you want to employ people, how you want to like create some type of financial stability for yourself to continue doing and sustaining what you want, whether that's like having people donate to you, reaching out for folks for grants, or whatever the case is, just depending on like how deep of a level you want to get into your nonprofit and how much time you want to invest into it too.
Right.
How much time do you dedicate to your nonprofit?
I think that every nonprofit looks differently, obviously, but I think what's really special about what Makayla and I do is that we're friends, and we know that we have lives, and we know that we're in grad school, and we have bills, and we have anxiety and stress and all these other things, right? So we put ourselves first so that we can put the nonprofit next. And so we commit ourselves to a minimum of 4 food drives a year, but we always exceed that. We always do more than that. Right now, we're like on a little hiatus because we had just been cramming in so much work from the start of this year to the last month. So we're taking a couple months break to just like mentally ground ourselves again so we can fully commit back to the work.
Right, because you've got a whole life, apart from this.
Yeah. And some people make nonprofit work their entire career, and that's great. But since this is something that we do on the side, we don't get paid for this. We go out looking for the funds. We go out getting the food, packing the food, delivering the food. We kind of have to do it on our free time. So we usually like meet once a week, go through plans. But yeah, right now we're on a hiatus because take care of yourself.
And you kind of already touched on this, but I was wondering, like what does a typical, obviously right now you guys are on a break, but when you guys are trying to just organize, and collaborate with food drives and things like that, like typically what does that week or month look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, like one of us will have a bright idea. Like, you know what? We haven't fed 100 people. We should do that. So we've only fed 75. Let's feed 100 now.
Right.
And it's just her and I. So we're just like, how are we going to feasibly make this happen? And we live in 2 different states. So it starts with a bright idea. We're like, oh, we should feed North Carolina Central, right? Okay, let's reach out to some people on their campus. What's the need? And how many students do they typically feed? What kind of food do their students like? These are all the questions that we start asking ourselves so that we can, get our ducks in a row. And then we're like, okay, what's our bank account look like? How much money do we think we might need to set aside for this drive? And how much food do we want to give them? Do we want to give them a box of food, a bag of food, buy bulk items and just give it to their pantry so that they'll have more options and accessibility to feed their students? And then after like reaching out to their university and making a plan on like, okay, this is the day we're going to give you the food. This is how much we're going to give you. What do you need from us? We always like to also let the people who donate to us regularly know what's going on behind the scenes. Like we've been in contact with this new university and we plan to give them food on this day. And it's all because of the work and the donations and the support that you've been able to provide us with along the way. Yeah, and then we feed the people, and after we feed the people, like it's such a celebratory moment for her and I. Like we always go out and have a drink afterwards and just like debrief about it because we're just like, that was great, that was a success. What are the things that we felt like we did well, and what are the things we feel like we could fix in the future?
I think even Darius and I have experienced a lot of moments of reflection to see where, we can grow bigger and like what our dreams and goals are. So I guess I'm curious to know like what is your big dream right now when it comes to MarketBoxx, and what is you and Makayla's vision for that?
We always say the same thing. We just want to feed as many people as we can. If I was like really shooting for the stars, I say this to her jokingly and she wants me to stop doing it, but I'm like, I want to work with a large part of the universities that we feed are historically Black institutions.
Right.
And so obviously we want to feed as many HBCUs as we possibly can. And I jokingly say to her all the time, like, I want to work with like celebrities who have graduated from HBCUs and create a box tailored to like their personality for their campus. Imagine a Meg Thee Stallion box.
Period.
Right? That'd be so cool. A hottie box and really jazz that hoe up like.
You know who you should get? You know who should get? You should get Saweetie, because she be in her favorite dollar ramen cheese whatever hot sauce combination.
Yes.
Yeah, she get the snacks box. Okay. Period.
And college students will eat that up, literally. Yeah. Literally eat that up.
Listen, I say that we get, a nigga box, a free eighth, you know what I mean, a fofo, you know what I mean, really help these kids out.
You know what though? A voucher for a 4 for $4, yeah, that would be very much appreciated. But how Pizza Hut used to do the the reading thing, and then you brought in like your I don't know if you guys ever experienced that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
We used to do reading logs, and then I don't know, somehow it was like if you read a certain number of minutes, you would get like a Pizza Hut personal pizza voucher or whatever.
Yeah, I remember that.
Walk into Pizza Hut and be like, "Hey, I read. Give me a pizza."
Exactly.
I know it's hard getting money from our own people to get a Cash App. So how do you get donations?
Honestly, like friends and family have been so supportive. So we're just be like, hey, y'all, it's our birthday on Facebook. Can you, donate to our Facebook fundraiser? Friends and family have been so helpful donating. We have my church donates. Makayla, her mom works for Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina, and they have worked out a plan for their employees to give a portion of their paycheck to us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so just really word of mouth and friends and family and people just believing in what we do and wanting to help us out.
I know that you touched on this briefly before, but I'm curious to know what the process has been for you to get involved with HBCUs to provide to their food pantries.
At first, when we started MarketBoxx, we didn't really know who we wanted to feed. We just know that we wanted to feed people.
Right.
And the first people we actually fed was a nonprofit in Greensboro called Black Child Development Institute of Greensboro, who service children and families. It was during the pandemic, and we could see how much our peers were having a difficult time accessing food, especially during COVID, with so many regulations as far as how they could access food on their campus, being the fact that the closest grocery store to A&T is 1.3 miles away, having all of these different barriers to accessing food. When it comes to the HBCU that we went to, we just already felt privy to that information. So we were just I bet other HBCUs are having similar, issues. And once going to their campuses and geographically seeing how things are set up, we were aware of the fact that this is a problem that's affecting probably most, if not all, of these institutions.
The food desert was definitely real in East Greensboro, I will say. Shout out to East Greensboro. So I think that's awesome that you guys were big enough and bold enough to think of other HBCUs who might be facing the same kind of geographical obstacles in accessing food.
I grew up in a food desert too, and I don't even think I realized it until going to college and being on campus and being oh my God, everyone would always, say oh, the grocery store's so far away, oh, you got to take the heat bus, or we got to walk or take an Uber or whatever, we had to take an Uber all the time to get to Walmart when we lived in Barbie. And
shout out Barbie Hall.
Shout out Barbie Hall.
Shout out Cooper. Shout out Cooper. Real niggas know about food.
And I remember everyone always, complaining about oh, it's so far, and in my head I was it ain't even that far. But then I thought back to my own experiences growing up in rural Appalachia, and it took us 25 minutes to get to the freaking grocery store. That is a food desert, and that there's slim to no healthy eating options around where I grew up, and the most eating options you have are fast food restaurants. And so it's just sometimes you have to take yourself out of your own environment to really realize this is not healthy, and this is not how people should be living.
It did seem like a whole production to have to go to to the nearest Walmart, they're all throughout college really, and I don't know how we made it. We really survived. Well, I definitely survived on the food on campus, which was not like the healthiest, you know.
I remember our freshman year, and at that point in time, you were a vegetarian, and just like going to the cafeteria and, you know, having such few options when it came to what you were able to eat in there was just so restrictive too. Like, I remember one, you put me onto like veggie burgers and black bean burgers.
Shout out,
and right, like I lived and died by those things for a long ass time, just because like I wanted more healthy options too that just like weren't being offered in our cafeteria. So like that struggle for just accessibility of food on HBCU campuses in general is it's just so boo-boo trash.
I will say, I'm not gonna lie. Before I went to A&T, for a brief time I was vegan, and that flew straight out the window when I got to campus. It flew straight out the window because I really would not have been able to eat anything. So I agree. I feel like I was really just eating whatever I could. Peace and love. I will say, because Darius and I were obviously involved with like the cafeteria and all the dining services and all of that. I will say, by senior year, I did see that they had made strides in that category. So I guess we all learn and grow, but we still got to do better.
A question I have, Alexis, is why do you even care, right? I think like a lot of people don't even care about these people nowadays. So what made you even care about these people to give them free food and to put all this work in?
Honestly, Makayla Williams. Like, I know I keep talking about her, but like truly,
as you should.
Half the team. She's
as you should.
Yeah,
like I would not be doing this without her. And I think one big reason, I remember I was like in some journalism class and I was talking to students or something about nonprofit work that I was doing, and she came up to me and she was just like, "You're really passionate about like nonprofits and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah, I am. Like, I really enjoy this work." And she's like, "We should start one." And I was like, "Ha ha ha, yeah." You know, like when someone drops an idea in your head, like, "Yeah, sure, whatever."
Ruminates
right
on the idea.
And she was so adamant. She was like, "No, we're gonna do this for real." And like every day she pushed me. She was like, "Okay, so what do you want our nonprofit to be? Like, do you want to feed people?" Like, so without her like constant encouragement and push, like MarketBoxx would not even exist, because I was just all about what other nonprofits can I pitch in and do my part and play my role in society, instead of thinking about like what can we really put our mark on and what community do we know well enough to serve ourselves. And so without her like fully pushing us in the right direction constantly, like MarketBoxx would not exist.
That's really special, I think, to have someone in your life to push you and to, you know, to reach further and to support. You know, that really, like, I feel like to me drives home the idea that anybody really can do this kind of work, like get involved, or at least, you know what I mean, like if not start a nonprofit, then get involved by working with them or volunteering or anything else. So I'm like curious to know, like, from your experience, now that you've been involved with MarketBoxx, for how long?
Oh geez, that's a good question. Maybe, I think this December will be 3 years.
Okay, so you've been involved with MarketBoxx for 3 years. In your experience thus far, what do you think it takes, whether it's like writing or like being able to market or something else? Like, what kind of hard skills do you think are good to have to be able to get in this line of work? Or I guess maybe it goes hand in hand with like what your day-to-day looks like, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. No, honestly, I'm just like, I'm not stumped. I'm just always on the other side of like asking people questions. So when people ask me questions, I'm like, oh God, I got to come up with a good answer right now.
Just speak from the heart, girl.
Yeah, that's true. Honestly, I think that the fact that Makayla and I have a lot of communications experience has been very beneficial for MarketBoxx. Not saying that you need to have like a communications degree to do this work, because you absolutely don't. I've worked for a lot of different nonprofits, and I am amazed at the different type of degrees that people have. Like,
right.
My last boss, she had a bachelor's in like poetry, you know? Like, people have a variety of degrees and are doing so many different things within the nonprofit sector. But I do think that having like some soft skills as far as writing is really helpful. because it allows you to communicate your mission to people a little bit better.
Right.
And let's see, maybe just having like, some basic people skills, feeling comfortable talking to people about something that you're passionate about is really important. And even if you have to talk to yourself in the mirror a couple of times to feel like you got it down solid, like practicing a skill, as far as it can be as simple as like, I really love comic books. I'm going to spend 5 minutes today in the mirror talking to myself about how much I love my comic books. Like, getting comfortable with talking about your passions is so pertinent for nonprofit work, because at the end of the day, your goal is to make somebody else believe in the work that you're doing.
Right.
So if you don't believe it for yourself, how are you going to make somebody else?
I know that's right.
Yeah.
Through your nonprofit work, has it led you to any cool experiences or any like people that you've met through your nonprofit work?
Yeah, I would say lots of cool experiences through the nonprofit work that I do, and also like journalism, have led me to some phenomenal experiences. Like with MarketBoxx, we've had some pretty cool media placements, like Teen Vogue wrote a story about us.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and NBC LX like did a broadcast segment on us, which is awesome. And I think that largely, obviously, nonprofit work is public service work. You're serving the public in a way. And, like I was saying before, my work is multifaceted. So journalism is also public service work. And I have got some pretty dope ass opportunities from that side of public service work too, not to brag on myself, but I feel like Darius, I feel like he assisted me the ball. So I kind of have to shoot now.
Go ahead.
A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet President Barack Obama.
What?
Shut up, Darius. You were being intentional. Based off of the fact that like my journalism is public service work. And so I think anytime that you're doing something that's impacting others, that's giving back to the public at large, like people are going to recognize that, and people are going to want to like support you and shine a big light on you. And I'm just so appreciative that people have been able to find both sides of what I do, whether that's through nonprofit work or whether that's through journalism.
Period, girl. Shine bright like a diamond.
Oh, thank you.
Obviously, like with all those accolades, I would say come a lot of like learning lessons. Can you share with me like what kind of personal growth you've had to go through to continue to strive in this kind of line of work, or in all of your lines of work, I guess?
Oh my gosh, yes. I was just talking to myself last night. I know I sound probably, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when I say talking to myself, but it helps ground me.
I love Cocoa Puffs.
You're silly. I was talking to myself last night about like not beating myself up, because I'm so bad about looking back at the past, and I'm just so hard on myself. And one of the biggest things I'm trying to teach myself right now is to just forgive yourself, girl. Like, you're not always...
Look, self-acceptance.
Yes, absolutely.
A requirement.
Like, you're not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to be everybody's cup of tea. You're not always going to say the right thing, react the right way. And all you can do when it happens is try to recognize it, apologize, and forgive yourself. The more that you hold on to all of those things that you feel like you didn't do right, all those times you feel like you screwed up, you're gonna beat yourself up and internally cause so much wear and tear that you're eventually gonna feel worthless. And it's just not worth it. Like, you gotta forgive yourself for all those times that you feel like you should have, could have, and would have done something, because it's in the past and you're where you're at now because of it.
So if you could meet 12-year-old Alexis, what would you tell her? Like, I feel like you do such cool stuff, and I feel like I wish you knew you did such cool stuff as your friend. Like, I feel like I wish sometimes I wish if I could tell 12-year-old me, like, bro, you're gonna be a boss one day. Like chill out, bro. Like, you have nothing to fear. Like, bro, just be lit. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you could go back and change things, what would you say?
Or like, did you even imagine at 12 that you would be able to do all of this?
Yikes. What grade was I in 12 when I was 12? Like, help me out. Help me do some math.
6th, 7th grade?
Yeah, like that was definitely middle school.
Ew, gross.
Right.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I would just say be confident, like believe in yourself. I had a lot of confidence issues growing up, not to like, be a sappy hoe right now, but like I had a lot of confidence issues growing up. I still struggle or whatever with that too, but I think if there's one thing I could tell myself, just like believe in yourself. I lacked so much confidence then. I was afraid to just be myself because I wasn't really in an environment that there wasn't a lot of Black folks around me, and I don't know, I just didn't believe in myself, and I wish that I would have did that more then. And yeah, but I don't regret a thing. Like, there's been lots of good and bad things to happen to me in my life, trash things and good things, but I don't regret any of them at all. Like, I'm here because they happened. So
right. Did you ever think that, well, when you were 12, did you ever think that you were going to be doing journalism work and nonprofit work? Was that like the future that you had for yourself?
No, not at all. I think I wanted to be, at that point, I think I wanted to be like a psychologist or something. Me helping other people with their problems. Ugh.
I mean, you do problem solve.
I don't even know why. I was just like, I think I can help other people with their problems, but no, I can't. I'm glad I did not go down that pathway.
I feel like, knowing everything you know now, why do you think some nonprofits fail or do badly?
Or have a bad reputation?
Yeah.
Let's see, because they don't understand their communities. Like, nothing. I've worked for a lot of nonprofits, so I'm not going to name drop anybody, but I was working
but
for
if you
this
wanted
one.
To. But
Red
if you
Cross.
wanted to name drop. No, go ahead.
I was working for this one nonprofit. And if I say this, it's totally going to give them away, but I don't freaking care. Their campaign at the time was called End Poverty. And I freaking hated that campaign so much. I felt like it was so like, dehumanizing and just like.
How so?
They would throw those two words around. They would throw those two buzzwords around to, make wealthy white people feel bad and want to give more money to help end poverty. And they just weren't approaching it in a way that like made actual sense, And
I was gonna say, because really, what does end poverty mean? Because I feel like
we gotta help the niggers.
Whoa.
They just don't. We gotta help them. The slushies and the
Darius,
and the Hennessy. We gotta help them. We gotta end that poverty, man. We gotta
coming in hot, Darius.
Coming in too hot, bro.
Right.
We gotta end that poverty, man.
And I mean,
yeah, but what does end poverty even mean, right?
Exactly. And like, ending poverty isn't just throwing money at the problem. Like, we know, we're smart enough to freaking know that poverty exists on it exists on several layers,
right?
And especially the most foundations of poverty exist systematically. How policies are created to set up low-income communities, Black and brown folks, to continue living in the situations that we do in this country and throughout the world in general. So using two words like in poverty just isn't enough for me. And to play on that, I stopped working for that nonprofit and went to work for another nonprofit. And while I was working at this other place, the nonprofit I was formerly working for, they give their job as a nonprofit is to give money, is to raise money and give it to other nonprofits to help them succeed. And so sometimes they require certain things from those nonprofits that they give money to. And it was during the pandemic, and they reached out to this new nonprofit that I was working for. And they said, hey, can you all talk to all of your Black and brown parents and ask them these two questions so we can tell our donors the answers? And one of the questions were, why do you think you're poor? And one of the other questions were, what does being poor feel like? What the fuck is that? What do you mean, what does being poor feel like? Being poor feels like I have to choose between feeding myself and keeping my lights on today. Like, what?
I would have said I was broke. I wouldn't have looked at myself like, oh my God, I'm poor. But it's like, now you are making me feel poor.
Exactly.
I feel like being poor is like wanting a Capri Sun, but not having a straw. You feel what I'm saying? Like, just disappointment. That's an analogy.
That was a good analogy, Darius.
That was a good analogy. Like,
See, I told you, I got good stuff, y'all. Y'all be playing me, but I'm there.
it is a disappointment, and there's so much stigmatism around like poverty as well, which is why I don't like that whole End Poverty campaign. It's just like you're further stigmatizing the fact that like
I'm your charity case.
exactly,
Yeah.
which makes it even harder for people that really do need assistance to ask for it.
But, you know, even with all that negativity, you know, what makes being in the nonprofit environment like worth it for you?
Yeah. I keep going back to Makayla, but she said something the day before yesterday that just really rang true. She was talking about someone at her job that was going over everything that's been happening in the world these last couple of weeks, and just saying how this person was saying how helpless that they felt and wanted to know like how they could get involved to change things and make a change or whatever. And Makayla had told them, just do your part, like no matter how big, how small, like just do your part. And so that's what I guess keeps me going in this nonprofit kind of world, is knowing that in some small way, like I'm doing my part to give a voice to people that like don't have it, and to provide assistance to people that really need it. And I think about times when like I've really needed help and I've been too afraid to ask for it. And I think about all the different nonprofit type of work I've done, and probably how there are a lot of people within those spaces that, you know, I've been able to provide some assistance to, that were probably too afraid to ask or didn't really know who to come to. And I just like to think that like in some really small way, like I'm doing something that's providing some type of greater good to the world, even though everything's so shitty and fucked up half of the time. Like,
No, but actually though, because the people that you're feeding in the community, they could be the next, you know, senator, like president, whatever, whoever. You being able to provide those resources is, you know, keeping people optimistic so that they can go out and achieve their hopes and dreams. So I definitely do think that you're making an impact on the greater good of society by making sure that people are well fed. And so I hope that you know that you are appreciated in the community, and that this work is important, and that so glad that like somebody that I know is doing that, because it's like amazing work. So yeah, love that.
thanks, Zila. I appreciate that.
I love that too.
Aggie pride.
Aggie pride.
Something that just I want the viewers to know before we get off is that how can they donate to you? How can they get involved with your organization?
Yeah, so you can find us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook. It's MarketBoxx with 2 X's at the end. And we also have a website. Just Google us, MarketBoxx with 2 X's. And on our website, there's options for people to donate to us. We have PayPal. We also have Venmo. You can also sign up through your Amazon, so that every time you make a purchase, there's this thing called Amazon Smiles. So every time you make a purchase, it'll give a little bit of proceeds toward MarketBoxx. I do that because I shop on Amazon a lot, even though I shouldn't.
Amazon is convenient. Like I said,
Aggie pride.
living
Aggie
is
pride.
convenient sometimes.
Exactly. So like if that's, you know, your speed, and you want to support us financially in that way, you can. Sometimes we have volunteer opportunities where we'll pack boxes or bags of food for college students, and we'll have people come out and help us do that. So we're always looking for opportunities in that way for people to support. Can I ask y'all a question?
Yeah.
Of course.
What would be your go-to thing to have like in your dorm room when like you got 2 pennies to your name and you're like, I'm hungry, but like I'm about to eat this?
For me, I would say soup.
Like cans of soup?
Yeah, cans of soup. I'm gonna be real. When I was in Cooper Hall, microwave only, something that tasted good and could be in that microwave with some soup. So I think I was fucking up the chicken noodle soups, and like the little like wedding soups, the little like round little things, like tiny wedding ones, bussin'. So yeah, I would say soup. I know everybody talks about ramen, but really it's soup, bro. Soup be bussin'. So I would say that was my main thing when I was in Coop, and then when I was in my apartment, like rice and some type of meat. But I always eat rice. Like rice is very easy to make. It tastes good. I have rice and beans. So yeah, rice.
You know, I was in the dorm room for like 3 years, but I never was a soup girl. I feel like it just never was it for me. I would say for me, I don't remember. I want to say my go-to meal would probably be cereal. if I had milk and cereal, and I used to get those like big, huge bags, like you know how you go to like Walmart or whatever, and they have like the off-brand, but like in the way bigger bags. I used to get those all the time and just have cereal.
Yes, Zila. Like one of the staple things that MarketBoxx puts in all of our bags and boxes is a box of cereal, sometimes 2 boxes of cereal, because in Barbie Hall, like cereal was like bread and butter. Okay, I swear everyone in our suite had cereal and milk. Like,
you know what I'm saying? And sometimes, and we had like, for whatever reason, we just really were an open door policy kind of dorm suite. And so it'd be like, hey, what kind of cereal you got? Trade?
For real, I'm tired of my Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Like, you can eat that breakfast, lunch, or dinner, okay?
Seriously. So, just to recap on, for anybody who wants to get involved in the nonprofit environment, some things to keep in your toolbox, according to the great Alexis Wray: have soft skills like writing, get comfortable talking about your passions. And Alexis said to talk in the mirror, and I feel like that's a great idea because I do that anyway. And definitely have a good understanding of what your purpose is for the community, because the last thing you want to do is to be misaligned with the people that you serve. Don't beat yourself up because everything's a learning process, and self-acceptance, because you know that's also important too, regardless of the line of work that you're in. Alexis Wray, thank you so much for joining the CAF Kids podcast.
I would like to end with this quote by Winston Churchill.
He's always got a quote at the end, but you know what? We're gonna let him rock with it. Go ahead, Darius.
Go ahead, Darius.
Y'all been hating, and I'm thank you, Aggie Pride, AGGIE.
We're not gonna hate no more.
All right, and thusly.
Oh no.
We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I actually like that. That was good.
I know. That's why I say it.
All
Go
right.
off. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you so much, Alexis.